Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Repurpose Live, where we inspire you to live on purpose and create a life you love by design. My name is Lissa Figgins, and my mission is to help after 40 women like you to design your life in the 7 key areas so that you can experience balance, growth, and impact today, as well as. And it's my intention each and every week to introduce you to an amazing woman living this repurposed journey. So today, I'm excited to introduce you to Whitney Prude. She is a certified pharmacist at Mayo Clinic. She's a speaker, she's an entrepreneur, and she's the CEO of the Whole and Happy Living, which is a virtual health and wellness coaching company. What I love is that Whitney has a deep passion for helping individuals to achieve their health and wellness. And listen to this, here's her philosophy. Because after all, it's not the years in your life that matter, it's the life in your years. Whitney, I love that and love what you're all about, because I truly believe that health and wellness is the foundation for everything else that we're doing in life. So thank you for being here today. I want to start off by hearing from you a little bit about your journey, how you got from where you were to what you're doing today, and why this is so much of a passion for you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on your podcast and to be able to, talk and share with your audience and the people that are listening. So thank you for that. A little bit about my story. I feel like a lot of times, you talk about being repurposed, and I think a lot of times that happens when we go through challenging things in life, right? Things come up and all of a sudden, we have these moments where it's like, wait a second, what am I doing? Where am I at? Who am I? For me, it actually started at a pretty young age. So when I was a teenager, I was still in high school, and my parents went through a pretty challenging divorce. And that was my first realization that life can be hard, right? That things don't always go how you plan them to go. And also that, you have to start figuring out how to get through these things. And something that I did as I was going through that, I decided that, I was just going to be this very stoic person that was just going to fly through this, and I was going to be fine. And I did what I see the majority of people do, is you bury it, right? You bury all of the hurt, you bury all of the pain, and you figure out how to move on. And I had done that to the point that I had convinced myself that I was perfectly fine, that I had dealt with this, I had moved on, that I was good. And it wasn't until I got into pharmacy school. So that was my dream. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to let this deter me from achieving my dream. And that was to become a pharmacist. So I got into pharmacy school. And what happened in pharmacy school is that I was so completely overwhelmed and pushed beyond my limits in pharmacy school that I ended up just having this complete meltdown. And after it was, I remember the day very vividly. I was in, 8 hours of lecture. I got home, I had tons of studying to do. And I got into my room, and I was so overwhelmed, and I just crumbled. I crumbled to the floor, and I just laid there, and I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And this was a huge moment for me, because when I finally kind of pulled myself together, that's when I realized, this didn't have anything to do with pharmacy. This had to do with everything else that I had buried, right? It had to do with relationships that were damaged. It had to do with feeling alone and feeling abandoned, abandoning myself, not really knowing who I am. All of those things is what came flooding back. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm broken. I felt very broken at that point. And that was really ultimately my breaking point. And when I started to climb, right, I really had to start working through those things, figuring out why was I having an emotional meltdown, right? And not just once, but multiple times, right? Why is this happening? Where is it coming from? What kind of, coping mechanisms have I developed to just get through, right? But not in a healthy way. Which we do often in life, right?
Exactly.
So that was really when I started my climb. And I worked through a lot of things. And as I worked through things, I had a desire to also help other people, right? As I could have more empathy for people that were struggling, right? But ultimately, the thing that pushed me into what I'm doing now, right? I still work as a pharmacist, but I'm working on kind of decreasing those hours as I've started my own business. But when I first started my job as a pharmacist, I was only 9 months in, and I felt like finally, like I had made it, right? This is my dream. I was there. Everything was going
Right.
perfectly. And about 9 months into my job as a pharmacist, my first job as a pharmacist, I actually ended up with a wrist work injury in both of my wrists. And within 2 weeks, I couldn't even use the computer. So I thought, well, I'll let them rest and heal and I'll be right back to normal. Well, it didn't quite work out how I had planned. I ended up
Right.
with an autoimmune disease. I ended up with rheumatoid arthritis and, a high suspicion for lupus. And it's been 4 years and I still can't use a computer like I could, right? So it really started to, really in the back of my mind, I started to think, was this partly caused because of how I decided to live my life? Because I was busy, I was burying things, I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, I was pushing myself so hard. And a lot of times those mental things that we put our bodies through can trigger these physical things to occur. And so I always, there's always this question in the back of my mind of, what if I had lived differently then? How would my life be different now? And I think ultimately my goal in thinking that and realizing that for myself and in my own life, my ultimate goal became to help other people to not have to get to that point before you say, I should be living my life differently, right? So I just ultimately, I want to help people never have to ask themselves that question, get down the road and be like, what if I had done it differently? What if I invested in myself then? What if I took care of myself? How would my life look now?
Such a beautiful story. And what I love is thank you for being vulnerable, right? With all the pieces of that, because there's a lot, you had, like you said, emotional things and life things and physical things and, and really started asking those deeper questions. And I think that's the place to start, is by us really pausing and not just continuing to bury, right? It's very easy. And that's something I've had a tendency to do in the past as well, is just to, push under the rug, and I just keep going.
Yep.
Strong and I'm confident and I can do this. I'm not going to let this derail me. And yet what I love from your story is that you, from your own experience, are now on a mission, right, to help others to not have that same experience, right, and to make those changes. So thank you for what you're doing and for the difference that you are making, and really wanting people to be aware of this. So, it's interesting because one of the things I heard you talk about was how, it didn't really come out until you got to this breaking point. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because I think my audience is specifically women. A lot of us are over 40, but I always say, if you're not yet, kudos to you for being here, because if you can learn these lessons before you hit that big milestone, learn from our high.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So why do you think it is, specifically as women, that we tend to bury those things, that we tend to just kind of push it to the side and move on and think that, like you said, we're okay?
I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons. I think women in general, we want to appear strong, right? And a lot of times, maybe we have kids, maybe we have people that are looking up to us that need us to be strong, right? I even think about my mom as she went through a divorce, right? And I was a teenager. I have 3 other siblings. I remember that she had to be strong. She is what got my family through, and she didn't get to fall apart. It just wasn't, it wasn't an option. If she fell apart, the family fell apart. And I think that as women, we feel a lot of that responsibility for others around us, and also for ourselves. That we just have this idea that we don't get to fall apart. We don't get that permission to fall apart, right? And we care about what other people think. I mean, I think that's just in general, unfortunately,
right? Yeah.
Innately, we care what people think, right? And we want to put on a good image, and we want to appear strong. We don't want the world to see us falling apart.
Right. I think we have this innate nature to nurture, care, serve, sacrifice for, do all these
Right.
things for other people. And so sometimes there can be a tendency of thinking that taking care of myself is selfish, or, it's a look at me, type of thing. But
Yep.
and not just in your situation, but in so many, think about when you don't make time for yourself, especially for your wellness, whether it's physical or mental, eventually it will demand that you make time, right? And now that starts robbing from every other relationship, career, just those other things that you really want to invest in. And so, it's interesting that, we will have to give it attention. It's just a matter of if we're going to give it the attention on the front side, or if we're going to wait until we get to that breaking point of doing that. So,
Right.
wow. Yeah, definitely, a place to come to and make that realization, right?
Right. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the things that I see and a lot of the things that I'm very passionate about studying is, this connection between our mind and our physical bodies, that, we mentally, our mental and physical health is not separate, right? It's very interconnected. And a lot of times we don't do anything until we end up with this physical ailment that now is not reversible, right? A lot of times you
Right.
can't go back once this occurs, right? And we wait until we get to that point. It's like, oh, now I'm diagnosed with diabetes, so now I have to live this way. Whereas before,
Exactly.
we could have prevented that from happening, but human nature, right? We don't do it until we
Hindsight
have
is 2020, right? Exactly. Yeah. Because we're in la la land that no, this isn't really an issue, or we kind of know it is, but we're just like, putting it under the rug. And I love the fact that you really talk about this, the mental and the physical being connected, because it is, our body is a system, and what is going on in our emotions, in our mental, we are mostly spirit side of this physical body, right?
Yep.
And there's, so much that happens in our mental state that then starts to manifest itself in our physical state. And that's when we start noticing it, I think, right? Because now we physically, like, for example, your wrists, right? You physically had this sign that something was not right in your body. Whereas before, that was going some of the same things were going on. It's just that you weren't noticing it.
Right.
And probably, I'm guessing what happens, and I'd be curious just to hear what you've seen in this area, is that it sounds like from a young age, you were just like in this chronic stress. Like our bodies were made to handle stress, but not long-term, so that, yes, if there's a situation that we need to respond to, that stress, respond, and that's a healthy kind of stress. But the problem is, especially as women who are tending to bury things, right? We just keep going and pushing through, and then we always stay at that stress level, right? Have you seen that in people that you work with, even in your own life?
All the time. Very rarely, in my opinion, very rarely do I see someone that's not living like that. I think that's the gold standard in our country today, which is why
it's normalized.
It's it's almost like, if you're not bragging about how busy you are, there's something wrong with you, because that's become the culture. Very much so, that, that's how we live today. And it's a problem. And you see it in the health trends of the country, right? We're over 40% obese. We have, a third of the population has diabetes. We, depression and suicide are at all-time highs. Like, these things, it's like, it's all there, but we're just not doing anything about it.
Yeah, we're not connecting the dots to what the true source is, right? I think sometimes we deal with the surface things that we see and put a Band-Aid on it, versus really getting down to the deep roots. And I often think about my kids, my grandkids one day, if society continues to go in this direction, and this continues to be the cultural norm, things are going to be like for them, and just making sure that we don't keep that cycle going. Right. So one of the things I heard you saying earlier, that I think a lot of women who are listening can probably relate to, is I should have taken care of myself better, right? We tend to should all over ourselves, and and beat ourselves up for, oh, I should have done this, I could have done this, if only, what if, like you asked some of those questions. And the reality is that, like, back then you didn't know what you didn't know. And so you were making decisions based on your current level of awareness, right? And so now your awareness is at a different level. And so you are making decisions based on where you are. So for that woman who's listening right now and she's thinking to herself, yeah, maybe that's me too. Maybe I've been pushing things under the rug. Maybe I've been staying in this chronic state of stress. Maybe I've been neglecting myself or not taking care of my wellness and that type of thing. Let's talk about a few just simple, practical things that we can start doing to start giving the attention that it needs before it demands our attention. What would you say to her?
What I would say is ultimately your body is your best guide, and it's going to tell you where you need to go. A lot of times, we see these things start to manifest and we ignore them. For example, we could take something as simple as you walk into a big party and all of a sudden your stomach drops and you feel incredibly insecure. If you start noticing just simple things like that, right? Like, what is your body telling you? It's telling you that like there's something wrong here, right? There's something that's bothering you, whether it's something that's from your past, it's something that you've developed in terms of a coping mechanism. Maybe you had some sort of trauma that occurred in a big group of people or embarrassment or something, right? But your body will basically, it works as a tool for you to start telling you where you can start digging. So at that point, something as simple as that, your stomach drops and you feel incredibly insecure. And, if you can train yourself to start noticing these things, the first thing you can start asking yourself is, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling like this? Why do I have this automatic reaction that happens in this certain type of situation? And you can kind of start tracing that back. So, if there's anxiety, if there's fear, discomfort, if there's, all of these different types of things, maybe, a thing that a lot of women do is people pleasing, right? And you start feeling bad for either doing something for someone or not doing something for someone, right? And you feel this conflict, and you can even start going back from there. Like, why do I feel the obligation to do this when I don't need to? Like, this isn't my responsibility. I don't have to step in here, and that's okay. I can take care of myself first, right? So that's the most practical thing. Even when I'm working with clients and we'll start, they're like, well, what do I even do? Where do I even start? It's like, well, let's start with the things that make you uncomfortable, right? That's where you start. That your body is telling you that those are exactly where the things are that you need to start addressing, or that you can start addressing.
Right. Yeah, I love that, right? Because our body is going to show us those cues. It's so often that either we're so busy that we're not noticing, and so we just brush on past it, or I think we just think like this is just normal, right? This is just what it's like being a woman. This is what it's like being a mom. This is what it's like aging. And I think we just start accepting these new, and something new may pop up and we may notice it. Right. But how often do we just say, oh, well, this must just be, what this means because now I'm 30 or now I'm 40 or now I'm 50 or, whatever for it. And so I love that noticing piece. It's just like and that's what you touched on as well, was emotions are not, positive or negative. They're just emotions. They're road signs to show us, hey, something's happening here. And so if we pay attention and ask those questions, like, well, where is this coming from? What's the cause of this? Then we know how to respond to it versus ignoring it, right? It's like if you're driving down the road, I'm thinking like, your check engine light comes on, right? And you just ignore it. You're like, oh, it's fine. It's probably just a bad sensor or whatever. And sometimes it is, but what our body is telling us. So I love that. So anything else that you would say to her before we finish up today?
And I think, so that's the biggest thing. I guess the last thing that I'm very passionate about, understanding how our minds work. And ultimately, within our brain, and because we are humans and we have a very complex mind, we have this ability to pause, right? We have the ability to think about our thoughts. We have the ability to think about our emotions and what we're feeling. And the ability to just like stop and just pause and think, observe like what is going on in this situation. I would just highly, recommend trying to incorporate this pause. If you can just pause and like observe like what is going on, you start to realize that these reactions are not actually who you are. They're reactions, they're coping mechanisms, they're things that your brain has developed to help you to get through life, right? But that doesn't necessarily define who you are. The person that you are is the person that can pause and say, what's going on here and what do I need to do about it?
I love the pause because I have been a typical to-do girl. And so
Yeah.
my response is just to do more and ignore it, or to do, all the things I think I should do versus just stopping. And like you said, just pausing and creating margin. I'm reading the book right now, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Okay.
It is an amazing book that really talks about how we just have this hurry culture, and how, our device that goes with us all the time are thinking about time and how much time we have and how much time we don't. And, all of these things have filled these in our lives so that we're not taking time to just pause and to be and to notice, right? And to really care for ourselves in the way that we need to until we have to. So
Right.
such a great conversation. This goes far beyond the few minutes that we have today. So if someone's listening today and she's thinking, okay, I want to be intentional, I'd love to, find out more about, what you do or how you can help and that type of thing, where can she go to find you? What do you have to offer? And, what would be that next step for her?
Yeah. And thank you for allowing me to, provide some of these things for your audience. The way that you would find me, I have a website. It's mywholeandhappylife.com. So you can, you'd be able to go there and contact me. One of the things that I always provide is a free strategy session. So a 50-minute session where anyone can set up a time with me, and you can set up a time on my website. And basically, it's the free time for you to get to know me to get to know you, to see if it's something, are we a good fit, or is there just something, maybe you just want the one session, is there something that I can just help you with to get you going in the right direction? I'm willing to offer that time for anyone who is willing to invest in themselves, right, to start working on themselves. So I find that to be very valuable. I always offer that. So that is certainly available to all of your listeners. But I wanted to provide a little bit more value and something that's very special and specific to your audience. So what I decided to do, I have this online course. It's called Whole Health Transformation. But there's a portion of it. So it talks about mental health, and it also goes through physical health, right? Your nutrition, your exercise. But what I wanted to do is, since we've kind of talked about the brain and understanding the mind, and how you can kind of start to increase your awareness and observe, what's going on and those types of things, I wanted to actually open up the first two sections of my course to be able for them to be able to preview for free. So I'll leave that open for once this podcast is online, I'll leave that open for 2 weeks after this podcast, that your listeners will be able to go and, read through that information and really get themselves started on this journey of understanding, what's going on in their mind and how they can increase their awareness and start moving forward.
I love that, because that's the first step. Being
Right.
aware that there's an issue, right? Or being aware of there's something to prevent.
Yeah.
Because you may be at the place listening that you're thinking, it's too late for me. I've already got all the issues, and we're here to tell you, no, it's not. Today is the best day for you to push pause and to start being aware and taking action. And you may be at the place, hey, I'm great. I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing all the things. And yet, there's a lot of life ahead of you that we don't know what will hold. And we want to be preventative as much as possible. So I think whether you're on either end of the spectrum or somewhere in the middle, such a great resource. So make sure that you go and take Whitney up on that and go check that out. And that's going to add a lot of value in moving forward. So thank you so much for your generosity in sharing that. I have been focusing on the being before the doing, right? The pushing pause before I just jump into doing. And so I just put together a new Goal Achieve Girls to Be list that I will put in there for anyone who's a recovering to-do list girl. And that's been typically your mode of apparatus, like how can you start being first, which you're going to find is really going to affect the doing that you do, because it's going to be the right kind of doing when you do step into taking those action steps. So I will put the that in the show notes as well. But before we go, we've been focusing lately on the 7 key areas of our life: faith, family, friends, your field of work, which could be your job working for someone else or your business, your finances, your fitness, mental or physical, and your fun. So of those categories, I'm curious, which one of those for you, if you were to put, some more intention and focus in this year, would make the biggest difference for you?
Right now, I would say the thing that I'm most excited about putting effort into is field of work. And the reason behind that is because, I have this passion for public speaking, and I always have since I was very young. And it's something that I've finally gotten to the point in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. But I'm really excited about it because I really am excited to, bring this message of health and wellness to a larger audience and really create, experiences and impact. So it's something, not, and I don't do it only because, I'm trying to make a difference in other people's lives, but it's something that I'm very passionate about and that's very fulfilling to me. And so I'm excited to put in, that effort this year into that, just because it adds a lot of value to my life as well.
I love that. I love that when we serve and when we increase our service, not only does that impact us, but then it also has that ripple effect into other people. So thank you today for serving us, for bringing such value, for offering some great things and next steps for us to continue to push pause and think about this. So make sure if you're listening that when you're in a place that you are able, you go down to the show notes and you check out the resources that are there and start taking steps towards truly taking care of yourself so that you can continue to serve and do the things that you were called to do. So thank you everyone for being with us. And until next time, keep living out your purpose and create a life that you love by design. We'll see you next time. Thanks.